Gee, that's why I wrote Blue Angel, Jonathan. I thought if I could stop one more of those from happening. Well, like all of you, I learned everything I know about sex and crime from Law & Order, SVU. And among the things I learned from the good detectives, especially Ice-T, was how much wider the range of sexual obsession and perversion was than I'd ever imagined. Hence my story. I'm going to read one page called Beheading. As a child, I was fascinated by decapitation. Now, what we think of now, grainy terrorist videos, or Hong Kong sword fight films, or serial killers with trophies gritting in the freezer. And not by every beheading, but only certain ones. The Virgin Martyrs left me cold, as did John the Baptist, though the volume of the lives of the saints on our otherwise sparse suburban bookshelf featured an illustration of a luscious Salome with the Baptist head on a platter. Marie Antoinette held me for a while, but finally what drew me were the legal executions with which kings got rid of their wives. I was obsessed with the history of the court of King Henry VIII. I've read through the school and library books and asked my parents for more. It was how I learned about sex, that is, something beyond the basics. What other reason could there have been for a man to tire of one woman and divorce her if he could, or kill her if he couldn't, and when the divorces got to be too much trouble? Why else would he keep burying his dead wife's ladies in waiting, and what charges convinced a judge to decapitate them so cruelly? Had the women really fallen in love with the handsome young nobles? This was nothing I could have learned at home, where my religious parents stayed lukewarmly married until they died months apart. Like only children everywhere, I got a partial education, isolated by turns removed and unhealthily attentive. I used to imagine the moment when the head is severed from the body. What were head and body, one without the other? Where did the person go? Was there such a thing as a soul, and where did it reside? I became a child expert on the mind-body problem. I used to imagine what it was like to order your wife's head chopped off or to be married to a man who had done that to his previous wife. I imagined being the executioner's child and the odd mood in the house at night when Dad came home from his job. I should say that I was good in school. I had friends. I played sports. Beheading was only part of what I thought about in my spare time. I was 11 or maybe 12 when I began to have a recurring dream. It began with me knocking on a door, always the same door, which was opened by a man, always the same kind, friendly, handsome man who led me to the same room in which there was a chopping block, an axe, and a pyramid made from the heads of children. And I always understood that I was about to join them.
And now, a writer whom I have admired for a long time, and who came all the way from Germany to join us, Abraham Rodriguez.
Raise the mic. Raised. Hi. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for, this is just a fantastic thing, and to be amidst such writers and stuff, it's just a fantastic honor for me as a mid-list writer. I shouldn't have mentioned that. But it's just a fantastic honor, and to be in such a beautiful book, it's just fantastic. I wrote a story called Celebration, which is about a guy who, well, you know, I don't know if you guys work in offices, you know? I used to work in offices. I don't do that anymore. But I used to work in offices, and the thing about offices is that they have office parties. And when they have office parties, they play this music. And the music that they play is, well, you know, Sister Sledge, We Are Family. And this one song, Celebration Time. Celebration, come on. You know this song, Cool in the Gang? Yeah. Well, I hate this stuff. This just really drives me crazy. And I don't know what they're celebrating about. They're stuck in offices wearing suits, and there's this smell of fear because they're so scared of the boss and all that. Okay, so I just figured, you know, this is a story about a guy who sort of goes psycho when he hears this song, and he has to just pummel somebody to death. And he tries to get away, and he tries to, okay? But he went through the door fast, and it wasn't the stairs. No stairs. It was a fucking men's room. And he slammed the door hard and hard. Again, it killed the music when he slammed it. It felt good to slam it again. Just some sound beating in his head. Flash, the bright fluorescence. Flash, the mirrors over the pair of basins. Flash, the tiled wall. All of it blasting brightness at him. The door. He slammed it again and again. It was almost blotting out the noise. And maybe if he could keep that up, he could beat the noise. Because Myron said the best way to blot out the noise is with another noise, adding cryptically that this was the solution, and paradoxically, he used that word. Also, sometimes the problem. And that made M laugh in mid-slam. It was possible, he was doing it. He was gonna beat it. He was gonna beat it because they weren't gonna get him. And that's when this guy came out of one of the stalls, looking mad as hell, and somehow puffed up with all the authority his three-piece suit gave him. Hey, what the hell are you doing? It was a color thing and a sound thing, both at once. Now it was two marbles clacking together hard over and over again. It was wood breaking all sharp and crack. It was chicken bone splitting. It was the guy's skull splitting, cracking against the wall over and over. Whimpering cries, mad bursts of air, gurgled gasps. A body crumples down crash against the toilet and set soft flush. Fresh water bursting spin with that muffled crash thump. At the last breath, the song changed. Thank you.
I so want to be him. You're getting an idea of what this book is like, but just the very, very little bit of how amazing it is and how amazing it's been for my co-editor, who I'm about to introduce. We decided to put ourselves in the lineup just a little. I didn't thank S.J. Roseanne, but she has been just the most wonderful, not just co-editor, but friend, and who listens. She doesn't whine at all. I whine all the time. So, S.J. Roseanne.
I don't think you recognize it when I whine, that's all. So the stories started coming in, and they were fabulous. And they kept coming in, and they kept being fabulous. And we had maybe all but two. And Jonathan and I realized we had to write stories ourselves. I mean, we had been, we promised that we would, and it was that time. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Sex and crime? You got to be crazy. I had been thinking a lot, and have been thinking a lot about the Mongols. I have kind of the Mongols on my mind. So, so I went there. On your knees. The savage's words roared down with hopeless finality, recalling the thunder of the boulders that rolled from the breached walls of her father's city to lie mute and useless on the plain. Even now, after all these weeks in the barbarian kingdom, she comprehended little of what was said to her. But this phrase she understood, and understood as well the pain and penalty for disobedience. She knelt. He gazed, grinning, at her ivory skin and huge dark eyes. Her hair rippled like blue-black silk, glinting even in the sickly fluorescent light. Her pink nipples stood from her breasts, hardened not by desire, he knew, but by dread. Her fear inflamed him, and even more, her pride. He waited until he could barely stand it, so he could watch the beads of cold sweat form on her brow as she bent motionless before him. Then he barked the command. Flinching, she raised her slender hands, and slowly, the way he liked it, she worked his zipper down. He marveled at her movements, her control, steeling herself even against her own trembling. He could make her weep in pain. He had, but not from terror or despair, though he knew she felt both, felt them more powerfully every day. He'd never known a girl like this. He wondered how long it would take, what it would take to break her. Thank you. And now, the best co-editor there ever was, whining notwithstanding. I have to tell you, he thinks he whines, but the truth is, every time something comes up, I go, can't be done. You know, like in that Jimmy Cagney movie, can't be done. And he's like Jimmy Cagney, it's done. He's you know, he may whine, but he gets things done. I just, you know, lie on the couch and panic.
Not true. Because I've been up here and talking too much, I just am really reading less than a page, but I printed it out in large type because of my age. The story that I want you to imagine the year is 1956, and you're on the Long Island Railroad, and the story is called Ben and Andrea and Evelyn and Ben. And this is sort of how it starts. Ben, by the way, I should say, when I said I was going to read something from my story, my wife said, just don't read that one part. That's the part. Ben drapes his sport jacket across his lap. His shirt is sticking to him. The train, hot and airless, cigarette smoke, including his own, making it hard to breathe. There's a woman sitting across from him, his age, maybe a year or two younger, 31, 2, knees almost touching his, hair up in a French knot, stockings on her legs. Ben pictures clips and snaps as he watches her drag red lacquered fingernails along her collarbone, then play with a gold crucifix between the V of her breast and a wedding ring on her finger. She lifts her eyes from the newspaper, headline, Andrea Doria sinks off Nantucket, and they exchange a look. Ben crushes his cigarette into the tiny ashtray, and when the train hurtles underground and everything goes black, he leans forward, slides his hand up her leg and into her panties, and he hears her gasp over the sound of the rattling train tracks, and she opens her legs a bit wider. When the lights flash on, the woman drops the newspaper into her lap, and Ben slips his hand out as the train pulls into the station, and they exchange one last look before she gets up, adjusts her skirt, and disappears into the crowd. Outside, Ben can't remember how he got here. He brings his hand to his nose, presses fingertips against nostrils, proof of what just happened.